Things haven't been going well for Russia in 2026. Its ground campaign has faltered, the spring and summer offensive is already a failure, and Putin is being forced to face up to the fact that Ukraine is going from strength to strength, while Russia gets weaker. And then France and Germany turned up. Both have just done something legitimately insane for Ukraine. We're talking about drones, fighter jets, and some of the most important missiles that Ukraine could get its hands on. It's all coming, and Putin is terrified. He knows his war is practically over already. Now, two of Ukraine's partners have just pushed Ukraine closer to finishing it once and for all. We'll start with Germany. On July 13th, Reuters reported that Germany is funding 50,000 attack drones that will be used across the front lines to devastate Russian troops and equipment. The news comes not from the defense ministries of Ukraine or Germany, both of which are staying quiet, but from a source familiar with what's happening. That source, who appears to be the CEO of the US defense technology firm Attrition, Lorenz Meyer, says that this deal represents the single largest purchase of drones by a Western government for Ukraine. Attrition isn't providing the drones, but what it is doing is creating the technology that the drones use to autonomously track and strike targets during the final phase of their flight. Meyer says that the contract for Ukraine's new drones is valued at $103 million and that it's been funded by a European country. How do we know that country is Germany? Skyfall says so. The Ukrainian drone manufacturer, which uses Attrion's tech in its strike drones, has confirmed Germany's involvement in the purchase of 50,000 drones, though it says that it can't elaborate further beyond giving the name of the type of drone that has been purchased: Shrike, one of the best short-range drones that Ukraine can access. Shrike is something special, and it's not just Ukraine that believes so. Back in March, the Pentagon ran a program to determine which drones would be best suited to America's new drone dominance program. The Shrike came out on top by a distance, as it scored 10 points more than the second-place drone in tests that, among other things, assessed strike accuracy at ranges of 2.5 to 10 kilometers, and how well the drones operate in urban environments against several targets. For Ukraine, 50,000 of these drones heading to the front lines means pain for Russia. There are two versions of the Shrike. The smaller, 17.78 centimeter version can carry a 1.5 kilogram payload. Not massive, sure, but more than enough to take out soldiers and armored vehicles. It can hit a maximum speed of 100 kilometers per hour, making it difficult to outrun, and it has a range of 30 kilometers, marking it out as a great addition to Ukraine's drone-infested kill zones. The larger version adds about 7.6 centimeters to the package, which allows for the payload to be doubled. Add a 20 km per hour speed upgrade into the mix, and that version of the Shrike is even more terrifying for Russia's soldiers. Oh, and there's the autonomy we mentioned. Thanks to Attrion's software, the Shrike can track and strike targets autonomously during the final phase of its flight. The deal that has just been revealed is already well underway. Meyer says that some of the Shrike drones that Germany has purchased for Ukraine are already on the front lines, wreaking havoc. The rest are due to arrive in Ukraine by the end of the year, when they'll inevitably deal more death and destruction to Russia's fraught forces. It all sounds impressive, right? The crazy thing is that a shipment of 50,000 of the most terrifying drones to grace the front lines of the Ukraine war is small fry compared to what France has just done for Ukraine. Nobody saw this coming, especially Putin. France has basically looked at Germany's offering and said, "That's great, but hold my beer." France saw Germany's drones, and it raised the stakes with fighter jets and missiles. We're acting like this is a bit like a competition, but the reality is that both France and Germany are doing great things for Ukraine. It's just that France's announcement is huge. Following a meeting of the Coalition of the Willing in Paris on July 13th, French President Emmanuel Macron announced that France will be delivering Rafale fighter jets to Ukraine. We knew that already. France committed to sending 100 Rafales to Ukraine back in February. But then Macron dropped the bombshell. On top of the jets, France is also going to grant licenses so that Ukraine can build its own Aster-30 anti-aircraft missiles, SCALP long-range cruise missiles, and ASAM hammer-guided bomb kits. That announcement comes on the back of US President Donald Trump stating that the US is going to give Ukraine a license to build Patriot missiles, and it's absolutely huge. What this means is that Ukraine is no longer going to have to rely on military aid to get its hands on all of these vital missiles and bomb kits. It can build its own. relying on a domestic defense sector that has ballooned in size since Putin invaded. Here are the details. The Rafale fighter jets aren't arriving instantly. As Macron says, this involves a project to acquire 16 Rafale aircraft and their accompanying weapon systems. The first flights could take place as early as 2028 to 2029, and personnel training will begin in the coming months. So Ukraine is going to spend the next few months getting its pilots ready for a fighter jet that will be arriving in a couple of years. We saw a similar process when Ukraine received F-16s. And though it may seem like the sort of delay that isn't ideal for Ukraine, and in some ways it is, France saying it will send jets from 2028 is also a sign of confidence. It's a message sent to Putin that Ukraine will still very much exist and still be in the fight years from now. In other words, no, Russia, you won't have won the war by 2028. You're not going to win it at all. As for the licenses, there were hints that this was going to happen. On June 30th, Euronews reported that Ukraine's Defense Minister Mikhailo Fedorov had revealed that negotiations were ongoing between Ukraine and France about the possibility of licensing SCALP missiles for Ukraine. There is indeed progress, but it's still too early to say, because it's a difficult process regarding intellectual property in general, the opening of production and so on. There is a certain bureaucracy in this regard, Fedorov said at the time. Now, here we are, about 2 weeks later, and whatever barriers that existed have been demolished. SCALP is coming to Ukrainian factories, and it's being joined by air defense missiles and guided bomb kits that are all extremely valuable to Ukraine. How massive this is for Ukraine cannot be overstated. On the intellectual property side alone, this is France, along with the producers of these weapons, recognizing that they can't keep up with Ukraine's demand. Rather than just telling Ukraine to deal with it, they're sharing their secrets with the one country that is on the front line of a fight against Russia that many in Europe believe will spread if Ukraine isn't victorious. What we're seeing here is true partnership. France has given Ukraine the keys to some of its most important weapons. As for the weapons themselves, they all have track records that showcase why Ukraine wants them in the first place. Take the Aster missiles as an example. They're used by the SAMP-T air defense system, which Ukraine already has in place and has used to great effect. Back in March 2025, Ukraine used the SAMP-T to shoot down a Sukhoi fighter jet, likely an Su-27 or Su-35, which highlights the system as a key tool that Ukraine can use to keep its skies safe. SAMP-T is also the closest equivalent to the Patriot air defense system. Euromaidan Press points out, as it's capable of intercepting ballistic missiles at a range of 25 kilometers and can engage other aerodynamic targets at a range of 150 kilometers. Ukraine's challenge has always been stockpiles. Aster builds up to 100 Aster-30 missiles annually, though it plans to bump that up to 300 missiles per year by 2028. That's not enough missiles, and not soon enough for Ukraine. Now that it has a license, Ukraine can control its own means of production. SCALP missiles, which are also called Storm Shadow, have been key to Ukraine's efforts to take down the Black Sea Fleet, and they're also devastatingly powerful missiles that are ideal for strikes against border territories. And Ukraine has been using the ASAM Hammer bomb kits throughout the war, with France having already committed to delivering at least 600 of the bombs per year. Now, Ukraine can get more of both, and it can build them as and when it needs. There is only one word that we can use to describe what the mood must be like in the Kremlin right now: terror. Germany and France have done something legitimately insane for Ukraine, and Putin knows it. Russia is scared. It knows that what we've just seen is a game changer on multiple levels, and we're going to explain what those levels are in just a moment. First, this is The Military Show. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now is the perfect time to hit the button to ensure you keep seeing more of our videos. Let's come back to the Shrike drones. A stockpile of 50,000 of the most accurate and lethal automated drones that Ukraine has in its arsenal spells more death for Russian soldiers on the front. And it's not like those soldiers aren't experiencing enough death already. In June alone, Russia suffered 39,490 casualties, which is a long way over its estimated recruitment of 24,000 to 30,000 soldiers per month, Al Jazeera reports. All of those losses are in exchange for an advance so slow that it will take Russia about 14 years to finally topple Ukraine's Donetsk defenses. Drones are the main cause of all of these deaths. The Hudson Institute notes that drones are estimated to be the cause of up to 80% of all casualties that happen on the front lines. So Germany hasn't just made a record-breaking purchase of any old weapon for Ukraine. It's buying the precise type of weapon that Ukraine needs to skyrocket Russia's casualty rate on the front. Plus, the 50,000 Shrike drones feed into the numbers advantage that Ukraine has over Russia. A lot has been said about Russia being able to bring more soldiers to the war than Ukraine, but the manpower matters less now than it ever did, as drones have become the key weapon in the war. Right now, Ukraine has a 1.5 to 1 numbers advantage in FPV drones, which are the drones used on and near the front lines. Germany just added 50,000 Shrike drones to Ukraine's stockpiles. And in doing so, it's also taken care of a $100 million plus deal that Ukraine would have had to make anyway. That's an underreported aspect of this drone deal. Whenever another nation buys drones for Ukraine, it saves Ukraine millions of dollars that can be spent on manufacturing other weapons to use against Russia. Who knows, maybe the money Ukraine has just saved will be put toward building the Aster-30 missiles that France has just provided the license to build. Out of everything that France and Germany have provided to Ukraine, this missile license may be the most terrifying for Russia. Not because these weapons can directly harm Russian soldiers. That's not what they're built to do. What they can do is shoot down aircraft and tackle the ballistic and cruise missiles that Russia has been launching at Ukraine almost daily. In the case of the missiles, this is the one clear advantage that Russia still holds over Ukraine, as it unleashes powerful missiles against both military facilities and Ukrainian cities. Zelensky has made no secret of the fact that he believes more air defenses will be a true game changer for Ukraine. He's been pressing Ukraine's NATO allies for more missiles, be they Patriots, Aster-30s or anything else, for pretty much the entire war. At the Ankara NATO summit that Trump used to announce the Patriot licensing, Zelensky reiterated his call, stating, "We are capable of doing everything else ourselves, but when it comes to air defense, we need our partners' determination." That came in the wake of Russian missile strikes that targeted Kyiv twice in a week, killing more than 50 civilians in the process. Indeed, Russia's missiles are the one problem that Ukraine can't solve through its own ingenuity. We see that in the interception rates. In June, Ukraine achieved an 89.4% interception rate against all aerial threats. That sounds good at first, but those numbers are heavily propped up by Ukraine's success against Russia's strike drones and missile types other than ballistic missiles. When it comes to Russia's ballistic missiles, Ukraine was only able to stop 40% of those that Russia fired. There's a clear gap in Ukraine's air defenses that Russia has been exploiting as Ukraine's air defense missile shortage bites. Zelensky is calling on Ukraine's partners to provide more. That call won't change. But now Ukraine has the Aster-30 license alongside the incoming Patriot license, it can finally do this one important component of its war against Russia by itself. Ukraine received its partner's determination, all right. And for Russia, this Aster-30 license means that the one successful route to attack that it has will be mitigated as soon as Ukraine can get the production lines up and running. That will terrify Putin. If he can't terrorize the Ukrainian people into surrender with his war crimes, that just leaves him to rely on a military that has soldiers dying in droves as they fail to make any real progress. Russia is done in that case. And don't forget there are SCALP and ASM Hammer licenses. We've touched on why these weapons are important already, but let's dig a little deeper. SCALP is an air-launched cruise missile designed to take out fixed and fortified targets. The missiles fly at low altitude and can hit high subsonic speeds of up to Mach 0.95, which makes it incredibly difficult to intercept. SCALP can also travel for about 250 kilometers, and it delivers a 450 kilogram broach penetrator warhead. That warhead works in multiple stages to punch through a target before delivering an explosive payload to whatever lies inside the target. That's why Ukraine has been using it to attack ships and bunkers. Punch through first, then destroy whatever is inside. That's the SCALP's modus operandi. ASM hammers are just as worrying for Russia. Often described simply as a bomb, the ASM hammer is more than that. Army Recognition describes it as a smart air-to-surface standoff weapon, and it is essentially a modular bomb kit capable of transforming traditional dumb bombs into precision-guided munitions. Attachable to dumb bombs ranging in size from 125, 250, 500, and 1,000 kilograms, the baseline hammer uses a combination of GPS and inertial navigation to reach its target. Later versions add infrared homing and laser guidance into the mix. Presumably, Ukraine is going to receive licenses to build all types of hammer, granting it exceptional versatility when it comes to using these weapons to bolster a mid-range strike campaign that is already ruining Russian logistics and command structures in the rear. The rocket motor in a hammer kit extends a dumb bomb's range by more than 70 kilometers, with the various guidance systems offering a circular error probable of between 1 and 10 meters. So Ukraine gets power and accuracy, just as it does with the Storm Shadow, only to serve a different purpose. Both of these weapons are vital for Ukraine. The Russian news agency TASS reports that Ukraine has already used more than 500 SCALP, Storm Shadow, and American-made ATACMS missiles against Russia as of March, and it would likely have used a lot more if it had them. About half of these 500-plus strikes were conducted using SCALP and Storm Shadow, 120 in 2023, 90 in 2024, and 45 in 2025. You can see the downward trend there, which tells us that Ukraine has stockpile challenges. Not anymore. With its new license, Ukraine can build as many SCALP missiles as it can afford. As for ASAM hammers, we mentioned earlier that they are already part of the mid-range strike campaign that Ukraine has launched against Russia. More of these bomb kits mean a capability to deliver bombs weighing up to 1,000 kilograms, on top of all the mid-range strike drones that Ukraine is unleashing. It's all over for Russia now, and here's why. We mentioned earlier that it will take Russia 14 years to capture Donetsk at its current rate of advance. The Institute for the Study of War highlights just how slow that advance is. In both April and May, Russia suffered net territorial losses, adding up to almost 400 square kilometers, so not an advance at all. Russia managed to reverse the trend in June, but only to the tune of 30.02 square kilometers. That's practically nothing in the context of the invasion. And this piddling rate of movement is happening because Ukraine keeps battering the Russian rear. What do SCALP and ASAM hammers allow Ukraine to do? Hit that rear even harder. For Putin, that will mean more weakness on the front and more problems in the rear to deal with. And remember, there will be Shrike drones on the front lines doing damage, Aster-30s in the skies taking away Russia's long-range missile advantage, and the prospect of Rafale fighter jets to come in 2028 that will expand Ukraine's aerial capabilities. All of this amounts to something very simple. Russia is falling behind at a time when Ukraine is getting more powerful. What Germany and France have really done here is establish deeper partnerships with Ukraine at a time when Russia lags technologically, and both its oil and human resources are dwindling. The war of attrition that Putin started has blown up in his face. Now Ukraine has the advantage. And now that Putin knows what's coming from France and Germany, it's all over. Russia's president may not admit it. He may be so trapped in his own war that he can't admit defeat, but he knows that Ukraine getting more drones and the ability to build the advanced weapons that counter everything that Russia tries to do is terrible for his plans. Russia is going to lose. In fact, it's lost key territory already. No, Ukraine hasn't gone on a massive counterattack that has liberated entire regions, but what Ukraine has done is take control of an area that was supposed to help win Russia the war, the Black Sea. Zelensky says Ukraine has won the battle for the Black Sea, and we'll explain what that means and why it matters in our video. And if you enjoyed this video, remember to hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you see more from the military show in your feed. And thank you as always for watching.